Okay, hello everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Once again, I have a very, very special interview. I'm going to be interviewing someone who I have followed for, goodness me, I would say probably 3 years now, over 3 years, probably 4 years now on YouTube. And I really like this guy. I'm going to introduce him properly in a second and get him to, tell a little bit about his story. Then I'm going to go into some specific questions. But the reason I like this guy so much and why I followed him on YouTube for all of these years, and I've seen all of your interviews and everything like that, and I learned a whole lot from you. And I'm hoping that you can, teach the people who follow me a lot as well in the hour that we have. But the reason that I like your content so much is because you really make no qualms about just telling other people where they're completely wrong. And you've used some amazing profanities in the past, and you're from New Zealand, I'm from Australia, so we kind of, there's kind of like a little bit of a river in between us, you could say, so maybe there's something similar there. But I really like that because I do the same thing about tinnitus. Obviously, the people who follow me, I say, you do this wrong, this is how it should be, here's my opinions, here's the results, so on and so forth. So anyway, Bart Kay, welcome to my YouTube channel, and I'm sure everyone watching is going to totally love this. Can you just give a very quick introduction before we get into it about, who you are and your qualifications? Maybe you could go a little bit into your academic and professional qualifications, and then maybe we can, end that with, what you're doing on YouTube now with the Science Watchdog and all that amazing stuff like that.
Cool. Right. Liam, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's an absolute privilege and a pleasure to finally cross-pollinate in terms of our YouTube channels. Yeah, look, I've been following what Liam's been doing with tinnitus, whatever you want to call it, as well, for as long as he's been following what I've been doing. And we've always talked about doing a collaborative piece of work, and one of us always cancels.
Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's for another day. About me, yes. 26 years ago or so, I got involved in academia as an adult student at the time. I always had the wherewithal intellectually to do great things academically, but straight out of school I thought better of that, and I was doing other things for 10 years. And I started my first undergraduate degree as a 28-year-old, having played guitar and sung songs in rock bands and did all that kind of stuff. And abused my body and brain cells in ways you couldn't begin to imagine. 28 came around, my hair fell out. I worked out that I wasn't going to make my millions as a rock god. I had no profession or skill set behind me at that stage. So I went to school and learned how to be a physiologist. And in a career spanning more than 2 decades therein, I at various times had 3 different areas of research interest, teaching area of expertise, underpinned by a number of advanced research degrees, which I guess is a kind of rarity, rather than, most people with advanced research degrees have got 1. Maybe. Yeah.
Anywho, so you went all in, like learning as much as you could.
That's it. When I get my teeth into something, I'm in it, and when I'm done with it, I'm done with it, and I dust the dust off my shoes, and we're done with that. Yeah. So I started out first, and I won't say foremost. I started out first in the area of the physiology of rest and exercise. Specifically, first and foremost, I was an exercise physiologist. After about a decade in that field, I moved more into human nutrition after that and spent another 5 or 7 years in there before finally branching off again and going, no, now I'm doing cardiovascular pathophysiology. So heart disease, atherosclerosis, all of that.
All that sort of stuff.
All of that is overarched by a solid knowledge, I guess, of research methodology, statistics, inference building, logic.
So for the people watching, what Bart is just saying just then is essentially that you have a very comprehensive understanding of how to actually read scientific literature, like how to understand it, how to see what's good, what's bad, what's knowledge, what you can actually use, and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also having been involved at the coalface as a research scientist producing my own works, that helps in that regard. And then obviously eventually getting to the stage where you are asked to peer review others' works by editors of various different journals. It's a progression. So what I'm really talking about is, a solidly well over 2 decades career as an academic. So a teaching academic, a lecturer, a senior lecturer, eventually professor of health science, a researcher in my own right, undertaking works of scientific endeavour to add to knowledge, and external consultancies, all of which you get to do over 60 hours a week, probably, to do it well in academia, for a salary of 80 to 120,000 for the vast majority of academics. Very few academics get to the upper echelons where they are commanding much bigger salaries than that. On top of that, there's a bunch of bullying, harassment.
That's one thing. Please give me 1 second. I just have to get one thing.
You bet.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you again, because I've seen you mention this. Oh, God, sorry. Just give me 1 sec, sorry.
Sure.
No, man. So, let me edit that out. So, I remember seeing in many of your interviews when you were talking about, because obviously you have an extensive career in academia, and you're a senior lecturer and professor, I think that you said. And the reason that you left, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you said the reason that you left, or at least one of the reasons that you left, was because of the bullying and the corruption, would you say, as well? Would that be an accurate word to use?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Not the reason, one of, so yes, absolutely. And a major one. It's never pleasant to be attempting to work in a department where you're at odds with what your departmental leadership is trying to do, I guess.
Is that basically, and I don't know how much you can say about this being your ex-place of employment and all that, but was basically, is what was going on that essentially, you work in a laboratory where you're conducting scientific research, and obviously you need grants, right? You need grants and you need money to be able to actually conduct the research. Company A comes to you and they say, look, we want to sell this drug, or we want to take it into another market, or we want to learn more about this or whatever. And you're obviously, very educated in this field. We want you to conduct the research, and we'd really like it if you could do it in such a way and tinker with the numbers. It isn't necessarily illegal, but it's kind of misleading, so that we can take this and then take it to the local governing body, and they'll give us legal permission to do a certain thing with this medication or whatever it was. Was that kind of what was going on?
Among other things, yes. 99% of all research scientists agree with their source of funding's needs.
Crazy coincidence, isn't it?
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then, so after you left that, you started this YouTube channel. And what prompted you to start the YouTube channel exactly?
I was at a loss as to what I was going to do with the remainder of my useful adult life. I had been so long in one industry, knowing exactly what it was that my job was and how it was supposed to be done. And then suddenly, at that stage of one's life, it really is like having your identity stripped away from you. What am I now? I was an academic for 20-something years. What am I now? What am I supposed to do? Number one, what am I supposed to do? Who am I? What's my purpose in life? And number two, How am I going to feed myself?
Both very important things. Very important things.
At that point, I was talking randomly to a friend of mine who I used to play cricket with, actually, as it turns out, among other things. I also used to be a high-level rugby league football referee.
Okay.
And he was involved in one of the clubs that I used to referee often as well. So we knew each other quite well, and I was in the hometown, and I sent him a message, hey, you want to hook up for lunch or whatever else? Yep, cool, bloody blah, blah. And I was telling him about, woe is me, I've lost my whole identity, my whole occupation now because I've just walked away from it. I've gone, actually, you can stick that where the sun don't shine. I've had a guts full. No. And he was like, well, why don't you start a YouTube channel? Why don't you start being a social media influencer? And I've said to him, are you not listening, mate? I said I need something that I can earn a living off, and you're telling me to set up this. I thought this was something that people did for a hobby. I had no conception or no idea that a person could earn a living by being an influencer.
Yeah,
literally. I mean, I thought, how I didn't even understand the mechanics of how you even start to earn money on a YouTube channel, for example. So I had to be educated as to the whole thing, and complete technophobe. Give me any bit of laboratory equipment, I can drive that. Give me this, that, and the other thing that I've been used to. But now I'm a bloke at that stage in my middle 40s, who had to learn the technology, how to do this stuff, how to set up recording video, how to make audio work. Most people are still bitching at me that I still haven't got that one sorted, Liam, or whatever.
I was actually watching an interview today of yours where the audio was fucking up, so maybe a couple more practice
today. Yes, that's right. Yeah, I was interviewed today, and there was an issue. There was a compatibility issue between my audio system and the host site that was running the live stream. Anyway, we sorted it. We sorted it. There was no major drama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Anyway, so my friend said to me, hey, you need to start doing this, and this is how it works. This is how you make money out of it. That kind of made sense to me. Okay, fine. I can start building something here. And so I just set to that steadily. And over the last 5 years, I've set up a moderately sized YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It could be much, much better. It could be a much larger YouTube channel, but for several factors.
Well, the shadow banning is probably going to be a huge one of those, and just getting totally flogged by YouTube is probably the biggest one, I would say.
Al Gore's rhythms, basically. Al Gore and his rhythms and his proclivities. Poor bugger's got to do something.
That'll do it. Well, I mean, I love the YouTube channel, man. I love it. And it's funny, I just moved back to Chiang Mai, both in Thailand. I was in Bangkok 2 days ago, came back to Chiang Mai. And it was actually in that room over there, which I saw your very first video. And it would have been about probably 4.5 years ago or something like that. And it was so fascinating. And we'll get into some questions in a second, but it was so great because what it was a video that you had done, and it was an analysis you were doing. And people call it reaction videos, but yours are more of like a comprehensive analysis. You're not sitting there, talking shit like other people do. You're actually breaking it all down. And it was between Sferage, that guy, and what's his name? The main vegan guy, the black guy with mental problems. I forget his name. vegan something, whatever his name is.
Yeah, but, you mean Richard Burgess?
Yes, I think that one, the American guy.
Yeah.
And you were breaking down their video, and to the average watcher, who was me back then, it seemed like they were having a very comprehensive conversation, and they were each sharing their screen. It was 3 hours long, and they were showing all this data and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And you would think they must know what they're talking about because they're showing all these numbers and they're talking about statistical significance. And then you were doing an analysis of the video, and you literally had to stop the video, I would say, between every 5 and 15 seconds to go, that's wrong. That's incorrect. This is wrong. That's not how it's done. And I liked it because, obviously you and I are more on the side of, eating more meat and less vegetables for various reasons that we'll get into. And it was like a vegan versus carnivore. I don't really like the labels, but vegan versus carnivore, whatever debate. And you would think that you would just be like, oh, well, the meat eater guy's got to be right. But you were like, no, he's wrong about a lot of the things that he's saying. He's right about a lot of the things, but wrong about a lot of the things that he's saying. So let's get into the questions. I've got a couple of questions here for you. So as you said, you've been following me. We've been speaking for a couple of years now, and I help people with tinnitus. And one of the things that I've really found has helped people with their tinnitus is cutting out plants. So cutting out things like coffee, which is a bean, cutting out things like excessive amounts of carbohydrates, obviously processed foods, which is like, I guess, made in a laboratory, or it's plants and a tiny bit of meat, and increasing their meat intake. And what people say to me is they go, Liam, I see the results you get and it looks really interesting and I want to give it a go, or I am giving it a go and it's working. But I went to my doctor, I went to my cardiologist, and they just said, I'm worried about your cholesterol, your HDL and your LDL. It's getting too high, and you got to pull back on the meat, just pump the brakes a little bit, or we'll have to put you on a statin. So I know this is a complex topic, and people, including cardiologists and the general practitioner, really don't know shit about it. They don't know anything about it. So could you just please talk about cholesterol regarding, is high cholesterol bad? What is cholesterol? What does it actually do? Should we seek to limit it? And that sort of thing, if you'd like, just to my audience, just like the foundational stuff.
Yep. Okay, so cardiovascular pathophysiologist hat on now.
Yeah.
Right. Cholesterol is vital for life. Cholesterol subserves multiple tasks, requirements in the human body. For example, 50% by weight and volume of every membrane of every single one of the cells in your body consists of molecular cholesterol. The myelin sheathing around your neurons variously in your nervous system, the thing that allows you to conduct nerve messages rapidly and allow you to move as a human moves, for example. That's cholesterol. Vitamin D, cholesterol, testosterone, estrogen, cholesterol-based. Your whole ability to metabolize and digest fats is cholesterol-based, etc., etc., etc. So we could go on all day. Without sufficient cholesterol, you will die.
Yeah.
So that's the first starting point. The second point is that the association of cholesterol reported with heart disease incidence is not collected using disciplined, properly randomized, properly powered, properly tenured metabolic ward lock-in studies on human beings over multiple decades. These are associative studies with a milieu, basically, of uncontrolled degrees of freedom that can covary, confound, destroy the validity or ability of a data set, to even be an accurate predictor, let alone a cause and effect artifact, heart disease versus cholesterol. It's a theory that cholesterol is involved in the formation of atherosclerotic plaques, but it's not a very good one. Not a very good theory at all, in fact. So, first of all, cholesterol is vital. Second of all, there's no empirical evidence whatsoever that cholesterol is involved in the development of atherosclerosis heart disease as it's proposed to be. 3, what is the usual involvement by way of weight or volume of cholesterol that you will find in an atherosclerotic lesion? Well, it's less than 1%, actually. So why are we saying this is a cholesterol-rich plaque? Or whatever it's not.
Even when there is a lesion, when there's actually damage, it's only a tiny bit.
Yeah, and such cholesterol that is there is actually there in an attempt to renew, repair, and heal that tissue. Because remember what I said about every single one of the cells of your body being 50% made up of cholesterol? Damage your tissues, you're going to need a truckload of cholesterol to repair that tissue. And so that's what it's doing there. Actually, it's trying to sort out the lesion, the injury to that tissue. It's not causing it. It's like saying, listen, every time I turn on the television and see footage of a forest fire, every time fire crews are running around.
Yeah.
So clearly what we need to do to sort out the scourge of these forest fires is to get rid of these jolly fire crews.
Exactly. That would be like exactly the same thing. I've heard you say that before. Like you're driving down the street, there's a house fire.
Yeah.
You see 6 different fire trucks with firemen running all around. Yeah. And you go, so you didn't see it. You didn't see the actual, where the fire started, but you go, well, these guys weren't here before and they're there now. Yeah. And now there's damage, there's a fire or there's a lesion.
Right.
So therefore it must be them.
Right.
And I think is the word for that reductionism? Is that the correct word?
Well, among other words that could be thrown at it, among other accusations, yes, it's reductionist.
Yeah,
it's a correlation fallacy. Really, it's a spurious. It's a spurious correlation. I'll give you an example of what spurious correlation is. Spurious correlation is when one thing is related to another thing without causality being involved, particularly. Or at least not a direct causal line of this. Like, here's the example.
Yeah.
If I take a correlative study between the number of cases of sunburn reported at a given beach resort on any given day, and I correlate that with the sale of ice creams by the ice cream vendors at that resort on those days, what I am going to find is a clear, strong, repeatable, predictable association between the sale of ice creams and sunburn. Ergo, I'm sorry, Mr. Ice Cream Salesman, but you're done here.
Yeah.
We are going to outlaw you.
Exactly. And it's really shocking to me because we won't go into it now because I want to keep moving on now, but it's shocking to me. I've seen, as I said, I've followed you for a while, and I've seen, in the lead up to this, I've been rewatching your videos and like the Joel Kahn videos and the other people who I won't really name, and Joel Kahn is a cardiologist, and I hope he's doing well. But the levels of, without being rude or mean to these people, the levels of delusion and insanity and just. Gad Saad, I don't know if you know Gad Saad, who's he's got a great book called The Parasitic Mind.
Yeah, loved it.
And he's fantastic. And I think he coined a term, something like the book is called The Parasitic Mind. So it's like a mind parasite that gets into you. And when you just think it is that way, then no one can convince you anything else is the truth. It's like me with tinnitus when I have people who love me and I have people who fucking hate my guts big time. And those people who hate my guts, they go, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not medically trained. My uncle's an ENT, or like I'm medically trained, blah, blah, blah. And then I say to them, okay, what is it that I'm doing or that I've said specifically that is wrong, and what do you have to say about these laundry list of like hundreds and hundreds of people who've been fixed that have said and shown, even though it's not, I get it, it's not an interventional scientific research, it's not that, I get it, but it's pretty convincing evidence, and they just can't answer it, and they stick to like ad hominems and things like that. And I've seen you like fighting off these people for so many years. And unless you can correct me, I don't think I've seen, maybe with like one exception, I haven't seen a single person change their mind on the idea that red meat doesn't actually cause heart disease. And not only that, cholesterol. One other thing I find interesting that you say, maybe you can talk just a little bit about this, is that whatever your cholesterol is, even though the measurement system is even crap itself, but whatever your cholesterol is what it is supposed to be, which I find really, really interesting. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. 80% or so of the cholesterol being expressed by your body at any given time is manufactured by your body from non-cholesterol precursors. It manufactures it, 80%.
Yeah. By the liver, right? The liver makes it. Is that correct?
Mostly in the liver tissues, yes. Although most cells of the body are actually capable of producing cholesterol.
Oh, wow.
But yes, mostly in the liver is where it's done. Okay. And the other 20% of the cholesterol is traceable to immediate intakes from that cholesterol, which is being contained in the food being eaten on a case-by-case basis by people. Some people eat a lot of cholesterol, some people avoid it and eat none. And then what happens is that those people set themselves into epigenetic situations that lead their body's inflammasomes, endocrine systems, metabolic systems to enter various different pathways and gears and things in such a way as to determine what the outcomes of all of that are going to be. Rich tapestry stuff, pretty much. So, go on.
I was just going to say, just what I was saying before about, how when people just think that there's a healthy level of cholesterol, like, your cholesterol has to be at this level as often as possible, and that's when you're healthy, which is incorrect because, as you say, it is what it's supposed to be. It's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yes.
And another thing that I find really interesting, and maybe you can talk again specifically about this thing, but your cholesterol in your body fluctuates wildly, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe not wildly isn't the most accurate term for it, but it does go up and down. Is that not correct?
Sure. Yeah, it's a variable. Like most physiological signals, if you want to think of them that way, most things that you could measure on a person will vary biologically upwards and downwards by a reasonable degree. And there'll be what would be a normal variability, a normal range of values, and that's generally what the medical professional will make their decisions on the basis of. Is this person normal or abnormal? Yeah. On the basis of how far away from the mean value does this individual sit on this test on this day, basically. Yeah,
which is crazy.
But getting to the point of your cholesterol is what it should be is because the level of cholesterol is set by the genes. It's under the control of the genes, basically.
Yeah.
Those genes being the very things that have survived both positive and negative selection pressures for, at least 4,000 million years.
Probably, so pretty long time.
Yeah, and probably longer than that. Yeah. That roughly 4,000 million years, that's rounded up, sure, but give or take, that is on the assumption that life evolved here on Earth rather than was delivered here from a much more ancient place. So that's why I say at least roughly 4,000 million years. Those genes really know what they're doing, is what I'm saying. You are the absolute pinnacle of evolution, Liam.
Exactly.
You specifically, son. You are the pinnacle of evolution.
Yes, me. Yes. I'm above everyone else. I knew it all along. Thanks for that.
And I am the absolute peak of my evolution, and so is every living human being today, right now. You are the absolute pinnacle. You are the result of roughly 4,000 million years of things being knocked out and things being encouraged through. So you are as good as it gets in your line of genes. But anyway, so what I'm saying is your genes have had a very, very long time to get this sorted out. Your genes are the thing that control basically your body in terms of its activities. They are the overriding lords of, we are the watchers of and controllers of everything directly or indirectly. So that's what happens. Your genes decide how much cholesterol you need right now, and that's what's expressed.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay. I want to stick with food and change gears just a little bit because, I know that's what you spend a lot of time talking about on YouTube, and you're an expert, I'd probably say a world expert on the topic, truly. I wanted to tell you a phrase, and I want you to just give me your snapshot opinion on this phrase, okay? Balanced diet.
Nonsense. Bullshit.
Yeah,
balance, you say?
because that's and for the people watching, what we're saying when I talk about a balanced diet, what me and Bart Kay, I know what I'm picturing. But, a balanced diet would be when your doctor, or heaven forbid, your nutritionist, Jesus Christ, when these people would say to you, you know what? And it probably starts with cholesterol to begin with anyway. They probably say your cholesterol is a little bit high, or, you're overweight, or you've got a dermatological problem, a skin problem. Let's talk about what you're eating. Let's make sure we get a nice colorful plate with maybe some broccoli and some asparagus. And, maybe we'll skip the dairy, but we'll go for some vegan cheese. You can have a little bit of meat, but when you do, let's stick with some fish. We'll have make sure if you're going to have rice, make sure you have the healthy one, the brown one, which we all know there's not particularly a healthy grain. It's just grain. It all turns into glucose in the blood at the end of the day anyway. It's a great way to get type 2 diabetes. But why do you tell me what you think about why there is specifically why, not the dangers of it, but why there are so many doctors and nutritionists and cardiologists and all these people talking about, you have to have variety, you have to reduce red meat. This is the way to eat. And you can go as conspiratorial as you want. You can talk about whatever you want, but I know why I think it is, but why do you think this is happening? Because it's causing so much harm. I mean, I get people coming to me who've followed their doctor's advice for decades and they are fucked. They're on sleep medications, they're on antidepressants, they're morbidly obese, they're so screwed, and they have been, perfect, just flawlessly following the doctor's advice, and it's just getting worse and worse. So why are these nutritionists and doctors telling people to eat this way? Why do you think it's happening?
Okay, the accepted narrative is bought and paid for.
Yeah.
And the modern understanding of and execution of psychological warfare and control programs on people at large are as evolved as they've ever been and are as intricate as they've ever been.
Yeah.
And people's even ability to think rationally, critically, or for themselves is swept aside by this current societal, really, means of sweeping aside people's humanity, individuality, intelligence, critical thinking skills. Every child wins a prize, Liam, these days, and your opinion is just as valid as everybody else's because you've got that opinion.
Your opinion it's called your truth, right?
That's right, your truth, yes.
Your truth.
Your truth, yes. Yes, and personally, I identify as an attack helicopter, and as such, my pronouns absolutely are.
Yeah.
Those are my pronouns, and you must pronounce those correctly, otherwise it's hate speech.
But that's exactly why I think it is, because I used to think, there is layers to it, it is bought and paid for, as we said at the beginning of this talk, as you said, which was funny and also scary in a way, which is that 99.9% of researchers agree with the people who are funding them, or however the phrase goes, which basically means that someone's coming in with, whatever the price is, like $500,000 to $20 million, that they're giving it to XYZ Research University, and it's a professor with a bunch of grad students, and the professor says, if you want to keep this spot and keep getting paid, we have to, basically discover their truth again, whatever they want it to be, that this medication is safe, or like, for example, and this is really just the pinnacle of the whole thing, that I think it was even maybe a little while ago, a year ago or 6 months ago, that was it the FDA? I think it was the FDA or the CDC or something, released their food pyramid of what's the healthiest food that you can eat. And one of the top things on there was Cheerios. Now, you cannot tell me that money has not gone from the bank account of Cheerios to the research department of the CDC or whatever in order to get that result. Or that the company that owns Cheerios and owns, all this different, a big conglomerate, didn't pay them off. And so I think that this is what people really need to understand when, sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but it's a great point, that people need to understand when, people like yourself are telling them, hey, you should eat, or you should think about eating this way and cut these things out, and what you think is healthy isn't healthy. And they go, yeah, but you're just the guy on the internet, and my doctor and the cardiologist and Michael Greger and all these big universities who are super rich with all this money for research, they say the opposite. So obviously they're right, right? And so people get so caught up in it, because to accept the fact that pretty much everything we're being told in society today is a lie. Yeah. Basically everything we're being told. So anyway, I spoke a bit there, but it's I agree that it's bought and paid for, and it's basically psychological warfare, because if you put people on a vegan diet, or you put them on a diet void of fat soluble vitamins and cholesterol, what happens is their brain literally shrinks, and they visibly, as you and I have seen, they get stupid and they get sick. And if you want a population that's easy to control, that's how you do it. That's what I would do if I was trying to, run the world or whatever. I'd do it that way. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole thing. So I kind of spoke a bit there, but next question, I promise I'll let you talk. It's exciting to talk to you, man. It's very exciting. But my next question is kind of tacked onto the balanced diet thing, which is, okay, so people think, okay, so meat is healthy, but plants are too, right? You got to get your healthy greens, you got to get your nuts and legumes and your seeds and your quinoa, and, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Can you talk a little bit about, if you wouldn't mind, about plant toxins and how, they're somewhat pernicious, and how if you eat them for a long enough amount of time, you can actually get really sick. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Plants, for the most part, are rooted to the spot, most plants. They can't run away, dive into a pond if they're not already in one, fly away on their wings, hide under a rock, hiss and spit at you, or show you their sharp pointy claws. Although some plants do have sharp spines and things as one of their defense mechanisms, most don't. Yeah. Most plants, therefore, have to defend themselves somehow, and the single most effective means of defending oneself tends to be the thing that evolves in parallel. Actually, in many, many different species, it's a fact of the evolutionary fact. I'm not even going to say the theory of evolution, the fact of evolution, that the best answers will show up again and again and again. And they do in plants in that situation, and that is to poison the animals trying to eat you. Basically, kill them, or at least make them sterile, ideally kill them out right on the spot. Sure. So that's what a lot of plants, many plants, 90-something% of plant material actually contains at some level some toxins which are more or less serious as an immediate risk to a human being. The ones that are of low immediate risk, as you say, though, are pernicious because people eat them for years and years and years and get cumulative effects over years and decades, which can be as unpleasant as an immediate death situation. Just, you get the same amount of suffering, it's just spread out over decades instead, and then you die anyway. So are plant toxins a thing? Yes. Is almost every plant substance, plant species that you can think of toxic to human beings? Yes. Is there anyone remotely sensible who knows anything about the actual taxonomy science, or that's looked into this at all, going to seriously say that what I've just said is incorrect in any way? No. They're very, very... I mean, most plant toxins are designed to kill insects quickly.
Insects,
because that's where most plant eating occurs by way of biomass. And they're very effective at doing that. For example, caffeine is a very, very effective insecticide. Very, very effective, in fact. Caffeine has completely different effects on a human physiological system, and we even use it as a recreational drug for years and years and years. Nonetheless, it's a toxin as well with problematic side effects, for example. Oxalates that you'll find in lots of plant foods are perhaps the worst, most pernicious cumulative toxin that human beings will end up with. oxalate crystals forming in their body as a result of taking in oxalate from plant sources. And, that can be very, very serious. It can be very, very damaging.
I just finished reading Sally Kay Norton's book on that, Toxic Superfoods, and how she talks about all these different caffeine being one, all these different types of plants like Swiss chard and the leafy greens especially, and those sorts of things where you consuming the oxalic acid, it binds with calcium, it turns into crystals, and it lodges in your joints, and you can get arthritis from it and things like that. And especially with people with and here's what shocks people so much about this, and I'll tell you a quick story, which is that you wouldn't believe people, they find me after they go to their ENT. So they get tinnitus, they go to their ENT, the ENT will say, oh, your tinnitus is because of your temporal mandibular joint dysfunction. Like in here, you've got something wrong. Here, we have to do surgery, or you need a mouth guard or whatever. And, usually that doesn't work. They still have the tinnitus because it was sort of caused by that, but not really. They come to me and they go, Liam, what should I do? And when I say to them, stop drinking green smoothies and that will probably fix your TMJ, they basically say, go fuck yourself, because they think that I'm just a scammer, or I'm taking the piss, or I'm just like saying silly things and I'm being offensive or sarcastic, but I'm actually being serious. And so the amount of vegans and vegetarians and just regular people who come to me who, look, their diet consists of literally like 10% meat, and I say, switch it up, just reduce the leafy greens, include more meat, and then 6 years of TMJ and 10 years of tinnitus, or whatever the years are, a lot of the time it goes away in about 3 months, and the pain in their jaw goes too, because they flush all the oxalate out of their system. Sometimes it takes a bit longer, but it's absolutely incredible what damage oxalate can do, because it causes. I've had people have visual snow when they cut it. Oxalate gets rid of the visual problems, digestive problems, psychological problems, all these different things. And of course, there's different things in plants like salicylate, oxalate, lectins, phytates, all these different things that, when you have that balanced diet, the unfortunate thing about the balanced diet is that you're also getting a balanced serving of all this shit, all this crap food.
Balance is a very, very successful, very, very good bit of psychological programming, a good bit of propaganda. It's a good bit of sales work. Take a word that's associated with light, justice, the right side of things. Balance is a good thing. Of course it is.
Yeah.
And apply it in a situation where it's of no value at all. Nutrition.
Yeah.
Well, why would you want balanced nutrition? That's not what you want. What you want actually is to make sure that you meet your nutritional requirements with the minimum amount of additional substances which are actually unhelpful, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you follow a species-appropriate, species-specific diet, and that's actually carnivore, without any plant material at all in it.
Let me ask you something about that, because once there's many steps to this. Once I convince somebody, I usually send them to your videos, I send them to your cholesterol playlist and so on and so forth, and I talk to them and they go, okay, Liam, this makes sense. I'm going to give it a go. I've spoken to my doctor or whatever. They've done all the due diligence, all that sort of stuff. A lot of the time I have a problem with people doing things too fast and their symptoms actually get much worse.
Yes.
Not often actually, but it can happen, and it does happen, because I tell them, look, take it slow. You don't want to rush this, because, the average age of the person who comes to me is about 45 years old. So they've had 45 years of a balanced diet, and now they're going to change it in one day.
Not a good idea.
Without obviously knowing these people and speaking to them individually, can you kind of give a bit of a generalized answer as to why you think some people react very poorly to switching their diet too fast, cutting out all the plants and going into full carnivore? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's a microbiome disorder. It's an imbalance. We actually do want a balance. in your microbiota. But what we want is a balance of the speciation of the bacteria and stuff that are living with us in our colons to be one of a number of different patterns which are demonstrably, on average, associated with healthful lifespans in people. There's not just one. There's all sorts of different patterns of microbiome that work perfectly well for a human being, at least middle term sort of thing. We're still waiting on long-term research to inform on that at all. So there are many different patterns, is what I'm saying, that can be healthful. And so you don't necessarily need a huge wide variety. You need a species-appropriate, species-specific diet. You are a specialist. Human beings are specialists. We evolved in a specialist niche, just like every other animal alive today.
That's one point that I like that you make a lot, actually. I've seen you talk about that a lot, where if you look at, as you just said, every other species, it eats one thing. With maybe obviously you have the animals which are herbivores, like horses and squirrels and whatnot. But if you put a piece of meat in front of them, they're going to eat it most of the time. They'll eat other animals and so forth. Excuse me. But most animals will actually stick to one thing. Yep. It's only us that, think we're so fucking smart. They think like we can add all these different things and like, oh, I'm going to watch like a cooking show and add some shallots and some, cut up some curcumin and some tomatoes and sun-dried tomatoes. And then we wonder why we have digestive problems and so on and so forth. But with the reality is, as you just said, we're specialists. And, when we look at what's happening with people's health and how poorly it is, and when they change that, how much better they get, it's plain to see. That, unfortunately, we also have the opposite data where when you look at people and I don't know how the fuck they're still alive, they're people who eat nothing but vegan foods for a long time. And, there's a couple of people I won't mention, but when I first started following you and you would analyze people's videos who only ate, plant foods, it was funny, it was like funny to see them just be made look silly. It's like, haha, look at that guy. Now it's not funny anymore. Now it's just sad because you see that they're destroying their health and, they're doing everything perfectly again. And these are people who don't drink, to my knowledge, don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs, and are relatively healthy. And they're deteriorating, man, mentally, physically deteriorating. So it's plain to see.
Yep. So while we're on that deterioration, there are many different ways in which a human body can deteriorate. It can break down in ways that you haven't even imagined yet, I imagine. Basically, what the situation is the overall health status of your body is determined by the balance between breakdown of your tissues, damage to those tissues, and the repair of them. So let's talk a little bit about adult stem cells before we close off and how to support those. It's a very, very important field for people to understand. One of the ways that your situation can deteriorate in your health is tinnitus, which I'm sure your viewers are all very well aware of. One of the thoughts around that is that a lot of the situation is based in physical damage to the tissues of the semicircular canals, the hair cells, all of that kind of stuff. And as such, if we could encourage our own bodies to renew and repair themselves with ever more vigor and less discouragement, that would be a good thing. So, with that being said, you need to understand that you have a population of stem cells that live in the bone marrow, in your long bones, actually, as it turns out. They're called CD34+, if you're not going to look them up. These are a line of stem cells which are blank cells of your own containing your DNA, basically. But they're not specialized cells. They are a generalized human cell. Which also happens to have the added bonus of the stem cell being basically immortal. It has no lifespan. It can divide pretty well indefinitely because it has an enzyme called telomerase. which rebuilds telomeres after cell divisions, thus meaning that there's no biological clock on that cell line. As such, your ability to release adult stem cells is tied up with your stem cells doing a division, and your body periodically releases adult stem cells into your bloodstream, whereupon they go around and do miraculous things, up to and including differentiating into new cells that have been damaged or destroyed in your body. And those new cells, by the way, differentiate into brand new adult cell lines with full-length telomeres precisely because of the telomerase that they have. What I'm telling you is that these cells are miraculous anti-aging, renew and repair agents of the human body. You have an inexhaustible supply of these greeblies that live in your bone marrow, as I said, so you can never run out of them. However, you are biologically programmed as you age to release fewer and fewer of these stem cells every year. It's one of the reasons that you will eventually become decrepit and die. It's not the only reason, but it's up there. I recently began to actively promote and market a product. It's the first and only product I'm associated with that I promote and market anywhere. And it is a oral supplementation product, which is a nutraceutical, really. It does have...
I've seen you talk about this,
It does. When I say recently, I'm talking 3 or 4 years I've been promoting this stuff, and I was actually using this product as a retail customer for 10 years prior to that. So it's a product I'm well acquainted with. 4 years of actually promoting it as a social media influencer, telling people they need to know this stuff exists. Right. What is it? It is an oral supplementation product that causes your bone marrow to release the adult stem cells vastly more rapidly than they otherwise would. In other words, it sets the clock back on your reducing ability to release your own adult stem cells. Thus, you have higher circulating adult stem cells in your bloodstream. Thus, there is a higher probability that your body will decide it is a priority right now to rebuild your damaged ocular system, thus repairing the damage that's causing your tinnitus from a mechanistic standpoint. That's not a therapeutic claim, by the way. I'm not allowed to make any... I'm not allowed. The FDA will not allow me to say this product will cause that to heal. But what I'm saying is we have to connect those dots yourself by me saying we can absolutely show with peer-reviewed evidence that these stem cells do exactly what I just said they do in the human body. We've observed it occurring. No problem. The product I'm talking about is there peer-reviewed independent scientific evidence that the stuff does what it says it does, i.e. cause an upregulation for a period of time in the release of these stem cells? Yes, it does. That's usually enough information for people to go, okay, that makes sense. That would give me a higher percentage likelihood that any given damaged tissue in my body will encounter an adult stem cell and thus be rejuvenated, repaired, and made all better. I think I'll have that.
Because I remember actually when I first saw you putting videos about this, because I remember I was in Albania and you were posting videos on it you just started posting videos on your YouTube channel. And I remember you were showing I'm not sure if it was a video using like electron microscopy or something like that, or I don't know what it was, actually showing that happening. And the thing is, that's very similar to what I actually get people to do when I help them, because when someone has damage, when it comes to like hair cells, like stereocilia, I'm not sure if I specifically agree with that having a causal relationship to actually causing tinnitus, but you can do damage to the ear. You certainly can. You can do damage to the liver or the kidneys. You can do damage to the brain. You can do damage to the nerves, which can actually in turn contribute to tinnitus. It definitely can.
Yes.
And I suppose, if there's a way for people to actually speed up that process, especially older people, then, I'm sure that would help.
Yeah.
So if you want me to, now that you're talking about it now, if you want me to put a link or something below my video, I'm sure I can do that.
Absolutely.
There's no problem.
Cool.
Yeah.
The only question then, Liam, would be, do you want to put my link or yours? Do you want to get paid the commission or should I? We'll talk about that behind the scenes.
No, we'll put your link up. I've already got enough. Stuff that I do, but we'll put your link below.
Excellent.
And people can go check that out.
Cool.
Maybe a link to some videos as well.
Yeah,
they can see that.
Yeah. Look, if people want to find me on my YouTube channel, it's very easy. Go to the YouTubes and type in at BART-KAY, and that will take you straight to my main channel. I've got about 5 or 6 different YouTube channels. It'll take you straight to the main one, and every single one of my other channels is listed in the show notes of every single one of the videos on my main channel. So go and binge watch it, all of it. It's fantastic. I play lots of different characters on the interwebs. I have a normal character that is a version of who I might be in the real world. It's actually not the real me, but whatever. Another character I have is a bloke called the Field Marshal, who puts on a military uniform, struts around the place, and he's the Field Marshal of the Meat Militia. And he's got a foul-mouthed little sidekick called Yellow Ted, who likes to say things and stuff from times to times.
Yeah.
And there's another collar and tie suit, suited up professorial channel where it's all science and nothing else. One or two of my videos have some strong language in them.
I think more than one or two.
Yeah,
I think it helps.
Most of that material, like not all of it, some of it still exists on YouTube, but most of that material that's really quite subversive in terms of the verbiage and the strength of emotive invection and things that I put in there for clicks. Actually, it's an act. All of those older videos you will actually find on the Odyssey platform, ODYSEE.
Oh, so like another website.
Yeah,
another website.
It's like a YouTube alternative, although obviously it's not really an alternative because there isn't one in terms of the technology and the provision of what the platform of the YouTube platform can do, and its penetration to the marketplace, despite many of us not agreeing with many of the things that are decided at the YouTube corporate level for various reasons. But that's for another day. But yes, Odyssey is another platform on which people can post their videos. So if you want to watch my old stuff that's more sweary and of even lower production quality, if that's possible, but the information is actually what you will find. The one thing that you will find, and you won't find this elsewhere with other creators, Liam, you will find me in videos from 5 years ago saying the same thing I say today.
Yeah.
I have not changed tunes here. It's not because I'm obstinate or intractable or... Although, talk to my mum, she'll tell you otherwise. But actually, it's because the truth is the truth. It doesn't change. It's not affected by people's theology, philosophy, or political leanings. It is what it is. So my whole thing is, and always has been, just tell it like it is. Yeah. So there you go. It's been a pleasure.
So to everybody watching, I'll put the links below for all that stuff, his YouTube channel, and what's the name of the supplement you were talking about? The supplement
is made by a company called Cerule, Cerule. But yes, the easiest way is just to go straight to the shop front. So the link will be under the video in the show notes, I imagine, Liam, or even up on the screen. Do you go to that sort of editing, putting things up on the screen, or?
Sometimes I do. I mean, I was planning on just cutting this video and putting it straight up, so it's nice and done. But I'll put it down below. I'll put it down below so people can click on it and they can go straight to it and check it out. Because you are. I know that you are a legitimate guy. You do take things very seriously. So, and also I know that John Jaquish from X3. I saw a video. He joined it as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he's like a very serious scientist as well. Like he was doing meta-analyses and everything like that. So I'll have to look into it myself as well, for sure, definitely.
Yeah, you will.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks, Bart. I really appreciate that. That was awesome. Thank you very much for your time. I'm happy that my organization skills allowed for me to not cancel this one. I apologize for the previous meetings, but I'm sure people will love this. So thank you very much, man. I appreciate that.
Not at all. My privilege and my pleasure. Catch you on the rebound.
Okay. See you, mate.
Ciao.